Okay, first things first, I don't have a HoloLens. I know you all came here thinking I might have. Hey, lucky door prize. There's a good reason though, is that it's bloody hard to get one. There's 3 in Australia, maybe? I'm not sure. And I'm on the wave. I don't know if you know anything about HoloLens, but they come out in waves to developer devices, developer kits. So I've been allowed to spend $3,000 US in wave 4. You know, that's how it works. The device comes with no warranty, comes with no insurance, comes with no guarantees of any kind. So chances are, even if I had one, I probably wouldn't even be allowed to use it here. So that out of the way, that's good because you're in the same boat. You don't have a HoloLens either, I'm assuming. Does anyone have one? Out. No. So we're all on the same page, right? So I have tried one and I have used one, which may put me a little bit ahead, but essentially we can all download the same tools, as I'll show you, and we can all use the same code and the same demos and everything. So with that out of the way, I'll just introduce myself. That's me. I'm really loud about Microsoft stuff, and they give me stickers, and that's why they say MVP on them. That's the best photo of me ever, I think. I do Pluralsight courses. So I do a few on Windows Phone, which was my bag. Windows Phone, have you heard of that? Because I have all of them, I think, in Australia. They're a little bit rare. Unfortunately, they didn't do as well as I would have thought. And then I've done a few kit courses and some courses with Troy as well on security, where I've been his gimp, really. I write on this website. Go read that if you want. And I just want to mention DDD Melbourne, because I'm part of the group that organises DDD Melbourne, and that's on in August in Melbourne. Surprise. And if you want to submit a talk or a proposal for a talk for that, that's open now. So please do, or please encourage people to do, or whatever, because it's kind of like this for the community, so we just try and make the community better, right? And I just want to mention NDC Sydney, because I went last year first time to Oslo for NDC, and it's absolutely amazing. Like, it's really cool. It's a completely different type of developer conference. Like, it's very laid back, but it has really, really amazing speakers. But anyway, so if you want, go check it out. And Jakob's out in the foyer, and you can win tickets. So if you haven't signed up, well, you just have to give your email address. I don't think he'll spam you that much. You can actually win a ticket for Sydney, or I think it's any conference actually, whether it's Oslo or Sydney or London. Anyway, he's out there. So, current status of software development. We're kind of used to building stuff that's on a screen, right? So we have this concept of building software that someone's going to sit down and use, or they might have a phone and walk around. And it's kind of like, I see it sort of, we got mobile apps on a phone, and it's flat, like it's on the phone, right? It's on screen. So again, if it's desktop software, it's still the same thing. You still sort of have something that people can take with them, and it's a 2D experience, for better or worse. Even gaming, whether it's an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo, whatever it is, the Wii has a little bit of interaction, and the Kinect has a little bit of interaction, but it's still essentially on the screen, right? And you're playing this thing that's on a screen. And even something like collaboration, you have to sit, well, either next to each other or virtually next to each other, being via Skype or share, screen share of some sort. And while this is all good and it pays our rent and it pays the phone bill, it's kind of just gets a little like this, right? It's a little bit the same over and over and over again. Like, yeah, you can build for web, but it's kind of like the same as building a mobile app. Like, the experience is something that someone has in their hand or they see on a screen, right? Just keep watching that. And by the way, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I'll just ignore you anyway. So, no, please ask, raise your hand, whatever, shout out. I'm good either way. So, let's just kind of define the space that we're in. Oh, it's pretty colors. So first off, we have virtual reality. So there's kind of like 3 major versions of digital reality. The first is virtual, which is like your Oculus Rift, or 1986 virtual reality, where you wear enormous things on your head and you're sort of standing in a box or something. Has anyone here tried Oculus? Yeah? A couple of people. And what happens is that you have this really immersive experience, but it's all created for you. So the whole world that you're seeing is digital, right? There's nothing else. which means that you kind of can't walk around because you can't see where you're going to walk into things. So there's very limited physical movement, and you're kind of isolated. I'm sure there's scenarios where you can interact and you can team up and you can go and fight dragons together or something, but it has a niche audience, and it's very cool. Don't get me wrong, I really like virtual reality, but those properties is what defines virtual reality. Then we have augmented reality, which is very much a mobile thing at the moment. So you have like a playing card or a book or something, and you point your camera usually on a phone or something on it, and it comes to life. That's kind of what people usually associate with augmented reality. So it sort of overlays data. It has a trigger that lets something come to life. There's some really good examples online of I saw one of a boat brochure. So if someone has selling boats and there's a brochure for it, and as soon as a person gets the brochure and they point some app at it, they can see the boat in 3D on this screen, and there's water under it and everything. It's very cool. It's really, really effective. It's often very simple and very light because there's that one trigger point and you can't sort of move around. It's not like virtual reality where you have the whole world around you. It's sort of an overlay on your existing world. All right, and then this is a term coined by Microsoft, as far as I know. They came up with mixed reality because this is where HoloLens falls into, and it's neither of those two first ones. So it's sort of the whole idea with HoloLens is that you have this space, and it doesn't matter what space it is, like this, and there'll be a table there, and there's some chairs over there, and things in your app will interact with whatever is there. Whether they're bouncing off it, or you can have a digital carrier to sit on something, or you can, put a hole in the table from the top, or whatever it might be. So it's the best of both worlds, in a sense. The whole idea is you have natural interactions. So your holograms are meant to interact with your physical world. So even though you can only see it, and believe me, you look absolutely ridiculous when you do this. Like you just look like you can't find your way or you're on drugs or something. But that is really cool because you have these holograms that will sit on something, and if you move the table, they'll fall off, like because it knows where your table is. If you have a hologram in the middle of the, floating in midair, and someone stands in front of it, it'll disappear, but you can go around the person and see behind them. So there's that whole interaction with your current physical world. Which is why you can use any room, any surface. So is that clear? Is there any questions around this? Just in terms of, just so we know what we're dealing with when we use the different terms.
So is mixed kind of like Google Glass when it first came out?
So is mixed like Google Glass? I never used Google Glass, but my impression was that Google Glass was not an overlay on reality. It was more of a HUD, a heads-up display, if that's fair. So it would still be contextual probably to maybe your location or who's ringing or something like that, but it wasn't an interaction with the physical world that you were in. So it's probably more of an augmented device, really, but just very, very advanced. It's a pity it doesn't exist anymore. I'm not sure why. Does anyone know why Google Glass disappeared? I would imagine it's privacy or something, but I don't know. Yeah. It has come back.
It will come back.
It will come back. Okay. All right, cool, it will come back. I like that. Because the more things we have of these, the more we're going to get of cool things to do with it, right? Did you have a question? Or there was like half a hand? No? Okay, cool. All right. So, usually when I think of virtual reality, and especially the Oculus, this is kind of like what happens, right? I don't know if you've seen this video before, but this guy's on a roller coaster, and someone just gives him a gentle nudge. And there's like a minute of this. And this makes sense because his inner ear, his balance is going, I'm on a roller coaster, and suddenly whatever he's going down and he gets pushed the other way, and his brain completely loses control. Right? So this is one of the issues with virtual reality, is that it's very immersive. Like you really lose touch with the real world. But then again, the first time I heard about HoloLens, because this was what I was used to, I was kind of that was my impression of HoloLens, right? Just, what the hell? Like, do you like his t-shirt? Just complete magic, right? Like, how the hell did they do this? because it is really quite impressive, just the whole mechanics of it. And then I found this picture the other day, which I tweeted as well, which that's the first HoloLens as far as I know. That actually, I'll see if I can point. That up there is the Kinect sensor. It's an actual Kinect he has on his head to monitor the room, right? Because what the HoloLens does is it'll scan the room that you're in, and it'll make a spatial mapping of it. We'll see that in a minute with a virtual room, though. And that was, so it's come a long way. But yeah, anyway, that was kind of like, that's where the magic comes from. It didn't start out like magic, it just became magic. So before we look at the code, let's just talk about specs. Because the HoloLens is a computer. It is its own device, and it runs Windows 10, as we'll see. Oh, I missed my slide there, but it runs Windows 10. And this is significant in the way that you develop for it. So is everyone here a software developer? Maybe it's easy saying, is someone not a software developer? Is there, yeah? So what do you do, if I may ask?
I mean, what I
Yeah, if you're not a software, do you build software, or do you manage software teams, or? You're a developer as well. Okay, yep, well that was what I meant. Okay, so we're all pretty much developers, right? If you haven't worked with Windows 10, that's kind of like, that's my bag anyway. I like Windows 10. It comes with something called the Universal Windows Platform, which is not the same as the Universal Windows apps that were for Windows 8. It's different because Microsoft. So Windows 10 allows you to build apps that run on everything. So I was talking to Udi earlier, and he's like, well, why? Well, that's a good point. Why would you build an app for everything? But Microsoft is giving you this contract saying, well, we promise that it's always going to be a core API, and we're always going to make sure that everything you write with for the core API will run on Windows 10. So it's like a promise. Whether you can find a business case for doing that or not, maybe a little bit trickier. But at least now we're here. So it runs Windows 10 fully. It has an Intel processor inside. I can't remember which one it was. It came out like a day after I wrote this preso. But it's a 32-bit processor, which was a bit surprising to me. It has this, a holographic processing unit. And that is what that other guy was talking about. That's magic. That's a new type of calculation hardware thing that they have built, that Microsoft have built, I think in conjunction with Intel. And that is what allegedly can process about 1 terabyte a second of holographic data. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure I believe that though. But that's the rumor. Again, most of these things is not something Microsoft want to officially verify, but this is from various news articles and leaks and whatnot. So it has 2 gigabyte of RAM, which doesn't seem like a lot. It might be because it's a developer device or something, and they want to punish developers for memory leaks, so I don't know. 64 gigs of storage, obviously to install your apps. It has 4 microphones to capture your voice, and that should have said there's also 4 speakers that sit just above your ears, and we'll get to sound a bit later. And then it runs with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, like almost every other mobile device. But the best thing about is none of this, because this is all just sort of, no, that'll change. The best thing about this compared to any other digital reality tool or device is that it's untethered. This is, for me, this is the #1 thing why HoloLens is above everything else. There is no cables off it. There is nothing that limits you from walking around everywhere. The only thing that does limit you is battery life, which is about 3 hours, I think, 2 or 3 hours. Untethered. So if you think of Oculus, yeah, sure, it's virtual reality and you probably don't want to walk anywhere anyway, but you can't, like you're stuck to a machine. With HoloLens, if you put a hologram on the wall here, and say that's your TV or that might be your website or whatever, and you walk out the room, when you come back, it's still there. Right, so you can literally scatter holograms everywhere, and that's one of the problems, because the whole device has to keep track of where everything is. So how do you find holograms that you put up? Anyway. But that to me is probably the #1 reason why HoloLens is such a cool device compared to other virtual or digital reality devices. Does that make sense? Yeah? There's nods. Anyone disagree? Out. No. Now, just one, especially after I tried it on, there's one thing that's normally you see shots like this, right? Ooh, look at it. And I usually say he's Australia because there's a shark eating some diver or something. But see, there's like nice sea floor here, and there's a hologram on the wall, and there's a shark there, and it all looks really, oh, holy moly. But what you actually see is more like that. The field of view is very, very small. It's probably, it's hard to explain, but it's like you're looking at this, right? And that's why when you see people on stage at Microsoft events or whatever, they sort of do this a lot because they can't see that much. And that's probably, I don't know if it's disappointing, but it's probably surprising, especially if you rely on seeing all the marketing guff from them. But that's just how it is. And you get used to it relatively quickly, you do. But there is a lot of, where did my hologram go? Because you can't sort of find out where you put it, right? Yeah?
Is that a processing limitation or is it something to do with the Oculus topic?
I'm not sure. So the question is it a processing issue? Or what was the...
Or is it something like Oculus that has the peripheral stuff? Is that a patenting issue? Or is it...
Oh, patenting issue?
Yeah.
I don't think it's about patents. I would expect this is purely about processing and making it smooth. In the research for this talk, there was a lot of articles about if you don't get your holograms at 60 hertz, and if you don't have them, there's a whole bunch of terms around whether they jump off the wall or they're jittering or they're not 60 hertz and all these. It has to be 100% like a real world object because otherwise you start throwing up. Your inner ear just cannot handle things that are, there's that thing on the wall that's a painting, that's stuck, but the one next to it is sort of jittery. You just go completely nuts. So that's part of it, I think, is that you want to make sure the holograms are 100% where you put them, and that's why the field of view is smaller. That's my theory. I don't talk to the hardware guys that built this. That's just my theory. All right. So let's have a look at this. I don't know if you've seen this. If I can get it to play.
Play through a giant holographic portal into a 3D Minecraft world right on the wall. Even though I don't have a HoloLens, I'm able to play together with stacks from my surface.
Are you going to come join my game, Lydia?
I'm in now.
I see you, jumping around.
One of the cool things about HoloLens is that it lets you display Minecraft virtually anywhere. You can get different perspectives on your Minecraft world. It's awesome to play with the controller, but could we show them something new, Stacks?
Sure. Take that experience off the wall and then put it on the table over here. Create world. I see Lydia way out there.
As I run around the place, Stacks can easily navigate and manipulate the world using his voice and his hands. He can walk around the hologram, pan around for different viewpoints, and even look inside.
That's pretty cool, hey? Like whether you like Minecraft or not, that's pretty freaking awesome. And this is from last year even. It's a reasonably old demo that they did, but I just keep coming back to it because it just showcases the product so well.
Lars,
Yep.
is there like duct tape HoloLens on the camera or something?
No, so the camera they use is, I don't have a picture of it here, but it looks like a science experiment. It's an enormous thing. So it's on a Steadicam or Steadicam rig, and it must have a HoloLens or something in front somehow, but it's hooked into what this particular HoloLens is showing so that everybody can see it on the screen. I don't know if you noticed at the beginning, he was just looking at a blank wall. There was nothing there, right? But it is a special camera, and that's another reason why it would be kind of boring for you guys if I had one on. Because I'll just be standing here going like this. That's a good question though. But I would imagine there's one of those cameras in the world or something. Just they're used for these demos. Okay, let's have a look at some of the code, shall we? Because it's really not that difficult. I thought it'd be a lot harder to build apps for this. It's probably hard to build really good apps, but that's mainly the same for every other platform. So there's 4 main building blocks of HoloLens apps that are really important to get right. The first is gaze. So gaze is where you look. So how do you select things? You have the HoloLens on, and the middle of the visor is pretty much where your mouse cursor is, for lack of a better term. And that's how you select things. So if you look at things, that's how you select them. So it's not your eyes. Your eyes it's not where you're looking, it's where you're pointing the HoloLens. And it's kind of best to explain like this. So this person here has a HoloLens on, and presumably the other guy has a HoloLens as well. And in this particular scenario, they are looking at the same thing, one in the virtual world, one in the real world, and they're overlaying it. So the gaze here is what's important, because the other guy can then see the gaze and see what he's looking at. So that's how that works. And there's an object called a raycast, which is a C# object, and that's how you interact with the gaze. Okay. See if this works. So I'll just go through the tools initially. So everything you do is through Unity. Has anyone here used Unity before? There's one, a couple. Is that through for game development or for something else? Game development is the same? Sorry? Oculus. Oh, very good. Excellent. Yep. Same. No one has. Okay. Because it is. I mean, I'm not a Unity user. I've only used it in the last 3 months or so. And it is meant for games, I would say. It's the primary use of Unity. In this case, it's our 3D tool. It's our 3D manipulation, our 3D scene. So it looks really scary initially, especially if you start sort of zooming in on things. You get all these things on the right here. And I don't know what half of them means. But you don't need to worry too much about it to get going. Like, it's probably good to know what all these things mean. And I do know some of them. But essentially, and this, by the way, all this is what's called the origami sample, and it's off Microsoft, because I want you guys to go out and do this right away if you want. You can just download it. Well, it's about a gig. But you can download this origami example on the HoloLens developer portal. So please do. Have a play with it. And so I've got 3 objects here. I've got a stage, which is this thing. So we can have a look. I'm just using the mouse wheel to scroll in and then right mouse button to sort of look at it in 3D space. I have 2 spheres. Oops. There's that one, which is like a earthy type star thing. And then there's the paper ball, which is that. So these are 3D models. They've been created probably in some other 3D modeling program and imported into Unity. So that's generally, if you're not a 3D modeler, you need to find either someone that is or find your assets online somehow. Unity has quite a good 3D store where you can buy, and there's lots of free stuff as well that you can download and use. So we have the way that you interact with these objects is through scripts. So I have a bunch of scripts here. There's one for gaze, and we'll look at all these in a minute in Visual Studio, not in here. So the gaze, for example, is oops, should be here. It doesn't actually show. But the gaze gesture script, I have dragged that onto to the cursor, which is here. So here's my cursor. So this is what my mouse pointer is going to look like, essentially. That's the best way I can describe it, is the gaze is like your mouse pointer. It's what you're trying to select, right? So that's the gaze. I have a... so when I did this talk the first time, I kept building this, and it's really boring. But you basically build it from Unity, and it creates a Visual Studio solution for you, and it looks like this. So the main thing about this here is, I don't know if you can see it's too small, but it's a Universal Windows app. So it's already running on the Universal Windows platform. Which means that anything else Universal Windows is going to run on HoloLens as well, just as a 2D thing, presumably, if you had an Xbox app and a desktop app or whatever it might be. So let's have a look at the Gaze Gesture Manager here. So every class here has a start, so that's like your initialization. And that's what happens when the app loads. This is what happens to all different holograms, or wherever this script is attached to. So this is attached to the cursor. And all this says is, give me a tapped event. And then, so tap essentially is this command. And that's tricky as well, because you've got to be within the range of the HoloLens where it can see. So if you turn your head, suddenly you can't tap anymore. So you've got to sort of be very mechanical about it. In this case, it's enter in the emulator, so it's a bit boring, but that's how it is. the tapped event here just says if you're focusing on an object, then we select that object. So you should pass that event, the send or the onSelect event to that object. And then update, which is the other part that is almost always there, is what happens every frame. So 60 times a second, it's going to call update on each of your scripts that have update in it, or each of your objects. And this just says, here's your raycast that we were talking about before. So this is where you're looking, and you have a true false here. So it's raycasting and saying if I'm hitting anything, then set the focused object. That's the way we know if we're looking at something. That's pretty much it. And then if we are looking at something, then we start capturing, well, gestures in this case. So let's just try and run it. So the HoloLens emulator is also free. All of this, you can use it on Visual Studio Community, and you can download, Unity has a free version of their tooling for HoloLens. And the HoloLens emulator as well is also free. So this is running here. It just takes a second to push it up. So there's the emulator. Looks like a HoloLens, doesn't it? It actually gives you a pretty good view of what the field of view is, because it's not very big. All right, so let's deploy it. Anyone knows a joke? All right, so here's our app. So this is what we saw before, right? There's the two spheres and there's our desk. So what we just added is the gaze. So I'm using WASD, like the good old gamer thing here. Oh, I just need to, there we go, select it. And I can go forwards and backwards and to the side. And then I can use the mouse keys to sort of rotate. So I can do this, right? I can rotate around things if I use both in computer. Does that make sense? Yeah? So then if we just added this cursor, so if I look at something, which is the center of my screen, there we go. Ooh, there's the cursor. Let's have a look at that. So that gets placed. So that's now on a focused object. And we said, all right, well, display our cursor. Show it. And it hugs the surface as well. So you see it follows the curvature of the polygons. And that's literally like, what, 20 lines of code? That's how easy it is. There's a lot of abstraction involved so that you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah? Everybody familiar, comfortable with Visual Studio? I'm guessing? Yeah? All right. If not, just, if you've got questions around, just raise your hand. Let me know. Okay, so what you can do is I think this is what you do. Oh, oops, hang on. If I hit Start, there's my Start menu. Well, somewhere it is. I've now moved around, so the Start menu might not be where I put it. You can see when I hit the right mouse key here, it maps out your environment. And that's kind of like just a whole bunch of grids, right? It's a bit hard to see. So what Microsoft have done, they've made this device portal, which is really, really handy. So here's the link to my HoloLens, or the emulator in this case. So you have a unique IP for that within your network. And there's a 3D view here, if you can see that up on the top left there. And that now gives us a plane of, so this is me. This is my head, my HoloLens. And you can see I can use the same as before. I can scroll around things and have a look at it. Now I can update this because there's a room that we're in. So we can actually, let me just go around this a bit. Hang on. No. Bit tricky. There we go. There you go. So there's our room. So these are actual rooms that have been scanned by a HoloLens. And they've taken the data, and you can use it in the emulator. So you have real data to use. You just don't actually look through the HoloLens. And if you go back to the emulator here, if we can sort of just do it side by side, you can see here as I turn, that turns as well. So they're 100% in sync, right? It's a bit hard now, I don't have anything to look at. And the same if I move forward and backwards, it'll actually move as well. So that is gold, because you can actually see what your environment is when you're testing your app. You can do a whole bunch of other stuff with this that I probably won't go through, but there's performance tracing and see where the processors is and performance and all that sort of stuff. Because again, performance is really, really important if you're building an app that you want people to use, especially around the frame rate. If you don't get 60 hertz on your holograms, people are going to start puking. So please do that. It's such a mess. So that's gaze. Come on, there we go. The next thing is gestures. So there are a few gestures, mainly the tap. So it's just like a fist and put your hand up and you just go straight down. That's it. That's all you do. And the HoloLens will notice that. And you can then tap and hold by not raising your finger again, and then if your app is capturing that gesture, you can use that as well. I believe you can make your own gestures, but I haven't ventured into that. So I don't know if it's going to work, but but it has this gesture field, and this is where where the HoloLens will pick up gestures. And it's meant to be that you can have your arm sort of relaxed and just do this, because you've got to do this for 3 hours. You don't want to do like that, right? So the idea is that you're supposed to be relaxed in this field of view. But again, if you move your head, you sort of got to move your whole body. That was hard to get used to be honest. And this is the tap gesture. Again, I can't reiterate that enough because that's what everything is a tap. It's like a mouse click. And then there's the bloom, which is the other universal. This will always work. You cannot override the bloom. And that's like your start menu. So if you do this, start menu pops up. And that works every time. It's quite amazing, actually. So those are the main gestures. Let's see if we can do something with gestures. So my gesture is my enter key, right? That's my tap. That's what we're left with. Okay, let's just go back to Visual Studio. Da-da. Come on. I'm just going to redo it. There you go. Any questions so far? Is there anything that doesn't make sense, or is there something you want to know more about? Or yes?
You can't use your laptop camera in any way emulate what it would be like with a real HoloLens.
How would you do that? As in, it would film your
Camera up to that.
face.
So you could actually do a real gesture.
No, let's build one. No, I don't know. I don't think you can.
Maybe Kinect sensor?
Kinect sensor? Well, I thought so too. I thought, well, there's an obvious choice. It already scans your room, right? But I haven't seen any demos with the Kinect sensor being used in this scenario. It still is very early days. Like, they've probably been building this for 6 or 7 years, but it's really early days, which is why no one has a device either. There just aren't that many around.
So the reason why you
is
do
that you've got the Kinect gun again, still pointing at you.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure there's lots of cool stuff you could do with the Kinect, but I haven't seen any. So
The Kinect is sort of facing away from you, so it's sort of inverted plane.
that's true. Yeah, the Kinect is facing the other way. So yeah, you're right.
But you can scan the room, right?
Well, you could scan the room, absolutely. Yeah, especially the new Kinect for the Xbox One is like super, super detailed. So was there a question over
I
here?
was just going to say that the webcam won't work because you only get you don't get any 3D telemetry at all. You just get 2D stuff.
Good point. It's all 2D. Yeah. So unless maybe if you had one of the Windows Hello infrared ones, maybe, or not. It's certainly not my bag. Okay, is this? Oh, it's still going. Wow, it's slow now. We might just keep it up here.
So,
Yeah.
What's the resolution of this, whatever field of view or resolution?
On the actual HoloLens? God, I don't know. I haven't seen any details on that. I would expect to be, it's reasonably high res because it does look very fine when you see it, and you can put them far away and they still look detailed, like it doesn't become pixelated. So it must be reasonably high res, I would have thought. Because when you have it on and you have, say there's a ballerina, which is always used as an example, and you can sort of tap and hold and you can move it in and out, so up and down I think it is, and it zooms in and out or something, and it still shows up as really high res. Why is this not coming up? My world has disappeared. Hang on. think I've moved away from where the holograms is. Give me 2 secs. No, it's not reacting at all. Right, demo gods. Anyway, I'm just going to close this and we'll talk a bit more and then I'll start it up again.
Can you go back and forth between Visual Studio and Unity?
Can you go back? Well, you can, but it takes a really long time, which is why I'm not doing it now. I have done that in one presentation and we ran out of time. So the workflow is that you work on your 3D objects and your scripts and your lighting and your grids and your backgrounds and all that stuff in Unity. And then you build it in Unity for the Windows 10 platform with your C# objects and so on. And it builds a Visual Studio project for you. That is a HoloLens project, targeted at HoloLens. And cool, just start again. And then if you make any change, you can make changes in Visual Studio for like business logic and that sort of stuff and your scripts that come with it. But if you want to make any changes to your 3D world, you've got to go back to Unity and build it again and open it up again. And that whole workflow of building a Unity and exporting to Visual Studio, opening Visual Studio, building it and deploying to the emulator, in a presentation you guys would be asleep. Just doing that over and over and over again. But if you do it at home in front of doing the tutorial, it's not too bad. You can go and get a cup of tea or something. Yeah?
What's the result of using with glasses? Do you have a permanent glasses? Do you have any problem?
No, I had glasses on.
Yeah, but do you have to use your glasses with the device?
Yes. Yep, it's designed to just put on. Yeah.
Do you have a visual problem?
No. Apparently it adjusts to that. I don't know how it does that, but I read something about if you have contacts or glasses, it adjusts to what you're seeing. It must be just that it is a standard, and because you're wearing glasses anyway, it must be close to that or something. So have your normal, what you would wear normally, have that on. Wow, this is slow. Look at that. For some reason they did this last time as well. Yeah?
So what's the roadmap for the HoloLens? What's happened after this dev kit's going to be shipped? You mentioned there are some waves of devices.
So far as I know, there's 4 waves. I don't know if there's any more than that. 4 waves of dev kits that gets sent out. You get an invite to give them.
Like a badge? Like
A wave is like a group. So group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. And that group is now receiving invitations. Wow, I think my computer's struggling a bit, which is odd. Because this is really slow right now. I did this 20 minutes ago and it's fine. And you then get an invitation to buy HoloLens, and then you pay the money and it gets shipped eventually, and you receive it. But right now you have to be in North America.
Turn off virus scan.
Virus scan. Yeah, I don't think I have a virus scan on there. Wow, this is... Okay, so let's just... Well, I can do something now. So here's my origami. I'll just start it up manually, if it'll let me. Chicka, 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 chicka. Oh, it's doing something now. There we go. So again, this is a 16 gig machine with a new Skylake processor, yada, yada, yada. It should be fine. But for some reason, sometimes it just stalls, goes to hold. So, demo gods, but we'll get there. I did update it yesterday, which was brave, but it still worked. So it shouldn't be. I'm not sure what it is. Usually it's Chrome that eats all of the resources. Maybe it's Chrome again.
Does this work on the current RT and Windows 10, or do you need to be on the... You need to be on 586, which I believe is the latest update. Yeah. Pretty sure it is. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So this is, I'm in...
You're an insider, like...
Yeah, I'm an idiot. I've upgraded this to an insider version, which may have something to do with it. I'm not sure. But let's just see here. I know you'd love to see this task manager window in a presentation, but there's definitely something that's completely... Camtasia. Thanks, Raj. So I'm recording the screen for SSW TV, and that apparently is eating up some of it. Let me just close this. Just try and free up something. Yeah, there's not much going on. Is it even doing something? No.
Can
There's.
you use the emulator without
Oh.
Visual Studio?
Okay. It was there. Can you use the emulator without?
Without Visual Studio?
No.
No.
No. Actually, that's not true. Yes, I think you can.
Can you just drop the app there?
You have to deploy it to the emulator, and that's done through Visual Studio as far as I'm aware. I've already done it through Visual Studio. There we go. All right, finally. So what we just did, we want to use tap, right? I'll show the code in a minute. But tap is, we want to gaze on something. So let's gaze on the ball here, or the sphere. And then I'm going to do this. You ready? Hey, it fell down. So that's the tap, right? So all we're doing is that these objects now have no physical properties. So they're just floating mid-air. When I tap them, we'll tap this one as well. Whee! These two spheres. We add gravity to them, or we make them physical objects, right? And I'll try and do this without killing the emulator. So we don't need to see that.
Lars, where did those objects go? They just hit the floor?
They hit the floor, yeah. So you can add spatial mapping, which I won't do right now because it draws more resources, but you get the whole grid. Like we saw before when I right-clicked and drew that grid, you can have that on permanently. And it's in the demo as well. So if you go through the tutorial, there will be ways to do that. So in this case, let's just have a look at, here's all my script. Speech manager, okay. Oh, that was actually the one we were looking at before. So here, we add this, unselect, and collider, yeah, sorry. Yep. So we have sphere commands here. So here's the unselect that we're calling. And all it does is this. So unselect, if this component doesn't have a rigid body, so if we haven't already tapped on it, then we add a rigid body, which essentially is make it adhere to gravity, and it falls down. That's all we're doing. So the unselect comes from the cursor, and we say tap on the cursor, and that passes the event to the sphere object, and then there's collision detection as well, because it keeps rolling on the floor. If we could see it as it falls down on the floor, I can do that and turn down and whatnot with the emulator. You can see it roll until it stops. So that's when you tap on something. So then we just go in here. Let's just have a look at the next thing here. So now this is the really cool thing. To me, this is by far the best part of it. Voice. So it's fully voice activated. Has microphones, everything. And it's very odd because when you do the tutorial, there's a lot of say this to continue or do this to do this, and you actually speak more to the HoloLens than you tap, which is kind of cool. And it seems to just work, even with an Aussie accent, or even another guy that tried it was Spanish, so he had like a Spanish type accent, so it seemed to work. So voice is, there's always a select, so if you're gazing at something, if you're looking at something, you can always say select. Always, and it'll tap whatever that is. Oh, hi. And then Cortana is integrated fully. So you can say, hey Cortana, because that one activates as well. And you can use Cortana to whatever you normally would do. And you can, I don't know if you know how much about Cortana, but you can integrate it into your apps, and you can have Cortana commands that will deep link into your app or open your app or do things your app, reset things and delete and create. So that works as well. And then of course you can have custom commands, which is what we'll do now. Demo, look at that, it spins. Okay, because this is by far the coolest part, if it works. Okay, so. So I've got a speech manager script here. And this is all it is. So there's a keyword recognizer, which is like a collection essentially, that takes a list of keywords. And we on start, so that's the initialization of this script. Whenever it's attached to the world, because we want to make sure this happens wherever we are. It doesn't matter if we're looking at something. it'll have reset world, so that's one command, or drop sphere. So those are the two commands that we're setting up. And it's not magic, these are just sentences. You can put whatever you want, as long as it makes sense in English and you can, say it. And all we do is that we have a broadcast message here, so that goes out everywhere, of on reset, if we say reset world. So that's everything gets the on reset, and if you handle that event, you can do something with it. And the other one is drop sphere, and this again has a gaze gesture manager, so if we're focusing on something, if we're looking at something, it'll then invoke this function, which is send message on drop to whatever we are looking at. And again, if you then have that object handling the on drop, then it'll do stuff. And then down here is just when you recognize a phrase, we invoke that action that was in that lambda. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. I'll make sure we want to get through everything. So yeah.
So does the voice have multiple frequencies?
No. It's English. Yeah, I tried in Danish and no. Well, I can. It's Danish. So.
Yeah.
As long as it makes sense in English, I'm sure you could say whatever.
Like if you wanted to have a name of a character or something like that.
Gandalf or?
Yeah, but if it wasn't in the dictionary, would it still be
Oh,
correct?
you make the dictionary.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so that's up to you. But if you can't interpret the word, then it doesn't matter. So now I just dropped these two before, right? So see if this works. What was the command? Reset world. Ta-da! Look at that. And it came back. And my English is not particularly clear. I'm an immigrant, So now we're gazing at something. So we can, again, we could say reset world. Same thing, right? But then we can also go drop sphere. Drop sphere. Hey! I didn't touch anything. Woo! To me, that's cool. Because I would just wear the device, right? And I can walk around and I can say, make me coffee, or whatever your command might be. And if you're clear in your pronunciation, then it would do it. Well, it's just for good laugh. Oh, hang on. Where are we at? Drop sphere. Hey! Reset world. Hey, you're gonna come back again. That's how easy it is. And that's all I did was, granted this is demo code, but not many lines of code. And all of this is just handle, picks up the microphone, does the thing, brr. All of it is just abstracted for you, which I like.
Memory is consuming.
The emulator?
Yeah, no, with that app in the emulator.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it. It wouldn't be much. Remember, these are just polygons. They're not, they're not huge objects. That's why you can have so many everywhere that just sits, and you can literally get lost in where your holograms are. So. And then the last thing that I probably won't demo, but I'll just talk about for a brief moment. Is sound. Because you have this limited field of view, it's really important that you can use sound to guide your users, right? So you can, sound is 360, and it's based around how your ears perceive sound anyway. So it's distance and direction based. It uses this really clever word, head-related transfer function, which is the distance that something takes to reach your ear, your one ear compared to the other. That's how you measure which is the direction and distance and all that, right? There's lots of mathematics gone into this, I'm sure. But that's how the HoloLens figures out what the sound is, where to put the sound in relation to where you're looking in the world. And I won't go through it because we're running out of time, but you can add sounds to everything. You have ambient sounds, you can have event-based sounds, you can have sounds that are based on how fast something is rolling, whether to play it or not, and all this sort of stuff. It's very, very, if you're a game developer, I'm sure all this will be pretty easy because you're probably used to attaching sounds to objects anyway. We'll skip the demo. So what's next? I hope it's not this. But there certainly is some social challenges around this. I don't know if people are going to start walking around with HoloLenses on the street. There's a really cool 6 or 7 minute video about an augmented reality that someone has made as a design project, but a video. Try and look it up. I can't remember the URL for it. I can tweet it later on. And the problem is that when you do wear this, you do like bit of an idiot. Like, you're not an X-Men, right? You're not an X-Men. But it'd probably get better design as it goes along, but it's smaller maybe, it gets, I don't know. But this is a first version, a first, developer kit even. It's not even a consumer version. But it doesn't have to all be this huge apps. I hope it's not all going to be, let's go to Mars and walk around on Mars, because that's a huge task. You can't, as a hobbyist, how do you do this, right? You don't even have Mars data, hopefully, unless you've been there. And then to kind of get people going, Microsoft are building apps as well. So there's this Galaxy Explorer, which I actually tried on the HoloLens. And it's kind of cool. And then someone said to me, well, that's not a HoloLens experience, that's a virtual reality experience, because you're not interacting with the room you're in. That doesn't make it less cool, though. This is really amazing. You have the whole Milky Way, and you can zoom in on different parts of it in the solar system and go around, look at the solar system, and it turns and does everything. So Microsoft is trying to help the community build this, and this was based on community feedback, what to build. But then there are developers that have got a dev kit. I don't know how many. I'm guessing maybe 100. I don't know. There's not a lot. And they do stuff like this. Like that.
What I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to just simply put a sphere in the middle of the bush and then just go around it and see what areas are outside the sphere and just trim them. And I don't know, let's see what happens. I'm going to try it out and show you guys whenever I get it done. So, this is what it looks like after trimming. I think I did a pretty decent job. Let me show you without the sphere, which by the way is low polygon, so it's not quite spherical, so it's not that great. And I could, keep going if I wanted to, but that's good enough. So this is what it looks like. I think it's pretty good. I just needed to grow a little bit more so I can trim it a little better, but I'm pretty happy with it. And that's how HoloLens can help you
do gardening, right? So I don't know if this is, I don't think my gardener's going to run around with a HoloLens, but this is really simple and it's really effective, because that looks really good. There's no way I could have cut that without it, right? Yeah?
Do you know how we film that?
So when you have the HoloLens, you can film video through it, and you can.
And the holograms that are on there.
Yeah, and so I didn't try that, so I'm not sure how that experience is, or even how much you can record. I'm not sure, but yeah, you can record what you see, and I think there's a way that you can maybe project it to a screen, but again, I'm not sure. So that's if you're a hobbyist, right? So that's obviously a developer that's got a kit and I want to do something with it. And that's why I think more developers that aren't in big corporations should have these, because we think of things like this. And that might lead to something else that has a bigger impact, right? But I thought it was really simple, really cool. And then you have Microsoft going, yeah, but look at this. Go. Why is it not working?
Hi, today we're going to show you an exciting new technology that could fundamentally change the way that people will communicate in the future. Imagine being able to virtually teleport from one space to another in real time. Hey Sergio, how does it feel like to be holoported?
It feels great to teleport that.
So Sergio is to wear his HoloLens device, and I'm going to wear mine. We can see each other in full 3D in real time. We can interact and communicate as if we're co-present. Sergio, can you walk around my space? Can you walk around this chair? So we're doing everything to give the impression that Sergio and I are present in the same space. Sergio, let's just do a high five. That's great. Thank you, Sergio. We call this technology holoportation.
So that's like the super other end of the spectrum, right? You probably need $1 million worth of 3D cameras and whatnot. I don't know. Just try and do that on an Australian broadband connection. But like, there's so many possibilities, and I don't know where it's going to end up. That's why it's cool. I mean, it really is quite the new technology, and it's really fresh, and it's very much in its infancy. Not even as far as virtual reality, because there's only one device that does this. I hope there'll be others, just so we get some competition and people start to innovate on it. Yeah.
Have you seen
seen some really practical use for the HoloLens, or is it just a solution looking for a problem?
See, that's a really good question, because I've had that before. And is it a solution looking for a problem? Maybe?
You can trim bush.
Yeah, but it's a bit like when people invented the car, right? People went, I'm not going to do that. You got to put petrol in, and it goes really slow. But look at now, right? Or the telephone for that matter. People went, we don't need that. We've got letters. It's kind of like pushing the envelope of what future technology is. So maybe, yeah, it did start out without having a problem to solve, but it's certainly inspiring developers to build a hell of a lot more new and very, very different apps for this platform in particular. But that's all I had. So thank you very much.